A rich girl whispered. Fake love for 10 minutes. What the waiter did next haunts forever. A shiver ran through the upscale restaurant as the words escaped her lips, dripping with a careless sweetness that sent shockwaves through the crowd. Eyes widened. Forks dropped. In that instant, the air thickened, a concoction of disbelief and electric tension buzzing like a live wire. Who did she think she was? And what would those who overheard do with this shocking request? The stage was set for a drama no one could have predicted. The rich girl, with lips painted a scarlet too bright, lounged in a plush velvet chair, her diamond bracelet glimmering under the low, moody lights. She tossed her hair back, her laughter like a storm of frivolous, playful chaos that clashed with the somber elegance of the surroundings. The waiter, a scrappy, sharp-eyed kid named Jake, glanced her way, his heart tightening in his chest. He could feel the unease ripple through the other patrons, but she was radiant, making the table seem to glow. Fake love for 10 minutes, she repeated, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling mix of mischief and boredom. At first, it seemed like a twisted joke, but there was a resolve in her voice that made Jake's stomach churn. The whispers began to circulate, echoing like a haunting melody. Did she really just say that? Glided through the room, carried on the breath of astonished guests. Someone's eyes darted around in disbelief. Another shook their head slowly, the tension palpable as everyone leaned closer to catch every sordid detail. Could Jake conjure such a performance? And what kind of consequences would follow a fool's game? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jake felt a strange blend of fear and excitement as he approached her table, sweat prickling at his temples. He was about to plunge into a performance drenched in lie and possibility. The gaze of hundreds bore down on him, weighing heavy like a boulder on his shoulders. As he slipped into the rich girl's world of pretense, he felt the boundary of reality start to blur. Could he pretend long enough to draw in the audience? Or would this charade turn dark, spiraling the night into chaos? Just as he was about to speak, something flickered in the corner of his eye, a shadow darting behind the flickering candlelight. Who was watching them? And then it hit him. Was this game bigger than he thought? The stakes were rising, and uncertainty danced like a ghost in the air. Jake braced himself, knowing that he'd have to face whatever lay ahead, while hidden eyes watched with hungry anticipation. Jake's heart raced, pounding like thunder in his chest as he finally managed to approach her table. The rich girl peered up at him. Her eyes sparkled with expectation and wicked amusement. The glimmer of her diamond bracelet reflected the dim light, casting a sharp glint that seemed to pierce right through him. This was it. He couldn't turn back now. He stammered, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. You want fake love for 10 minutes? The words came out hesitantly, but the crowd had already leaned in, breath held in collective anticipation. Exactly, she chirped, clapping her hands as if she were a schoolgirl delighting in a game. Just pretend to be my boyfriend. Charm me, kiss me, make it real for the cameras. He couldn't believe it. Cameras? Were there cameras? He scanned the restaurant, noticing several guests eyeing their table, phones poised to capture every moment. Panic shot through him. This was no innocent performance. This was a spectacle. And what do I get in return? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady, confusion mixed with adrenaline flaring in his gut. She leaned forward, her voice dropping like honey, thick and sweet. How about an unexpected tip and the chance to make something unforgettable happen? Her smirk was bold, and Jake felt the weight of her gaze digging deep, like she was peeling back layers he didn't even know existed. Jake hesitated, torn between the risk of humiliating himself and the allure of potential rewards that whispered in his ears like sirens. As his mind raced, he felt the tension radiating from the crowd, anticipation on an electric edge, hungry to see where this would go. A surge of too many emotions throbbed within him. Fear, excitement, and a voice nagging that this was a terrible idea. But then, in a flash, the shadows flickered again. Something dark shifted behind a pillar across the room. Jake's breath hitched. It was unnerving, like the ominous pulse of a storm cloud brewing overhead. He could almost feel attention slamming down on him, pressure mounting as dozens of guests awaited his next move. 10 minutes, he murmured to himself, the words hanging heavily in the air. How hard could it be? He took a deep breath, focusing on the rich girl whose smile promised a wild ride. All right, he said, summoning a flicker of bravado. Let us play. He stepped forward, heart racing like a runaway train, hands trembling slightly as he reached for her. The gasps around them crescendoed into muted roars. Just as he leaned in, their lips almost brushing, he caught that shadow again, flitting eerily in the corner of his eye. A figure, dark and imposing, watching. Jake's heart sank. This was no simple game. Then it happened. A glass shattered, the sound slicing through the tension like a knife. Gasps erupted around him, eyes darting towards the source. A stranger in the corner stood up, their face shadowed but eyes glinting with malice. Did they know her? Did they know him? With the room spiraling into chaos, Jake's body felt like it was stuck in molasses. He was caught in the whirlwind, desperate for clarity, but the visual wreck of a scene was crashing around him. And then he heard the rich girl murmur, "You've unleashed something you can't control." The game just changed. What had he just stepped into? As the panic spread and all eyes turned to the stranger, Jake knew he was teetering on the edge of something uncontrollable, a storm gathering strength behind that familiar face. Who was it in the shadows? And what did they want? The pulse of fear drummed heavily in his ears. He had a decision to make before the storm hit: run or fight. But how could he find his footing when the ground kept shifting? Tension hung thick in the air, and Jake braced himself, wondering if he would make it out alive. How deep did this rabbit hole go? The moment shattered. Glass shattered, screams erupted, and all Jake could see was the shadowy figure, still lurking, still watching. It felt like the walls were closing in. The rich girl's laughter faded into the background. She wasn't just a quirky girl playing a silly game anymore. She was wrapped in danger, possibly a player in a much larger plot. He turned to her, desperation etched across his face. What did you mean? The game just changed. The words tumbled out, urgent and frantic. Let us just say, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos, that not everyone here is a friend. In fact, quite the opposite. Her eyes darted past him toward the figure, a mix of excitement and fear flickering across her face. Jake felt a wave of confusion washing over him. Instead of clarity, she had added more layers to this twisted situation. He couldn't afford to get bogged down in her secrets. Not now, with the eyes of the room glued to him and the looming threat still unaddressed. The figure in the corner had started moving. Each stride was deliberate, powerful. Jake's instincts screamed at him to run, but where? The exits were swarmed with curious onlookers captivated by the spectacle, unaware of the danger that loomed over them like a gathering storm. Listen, he said, leaning closer to her. We need to get out of here. But as he turned, the dark figure emerged from the shadows. It stepped into the light. A sharp glare settled on its features. Jake's breath froze. It was a face he recognized all too well, a former friend turned rival, Casey, a guy who had vanished out of his life after college. The jarring animosity in Casey's expression shook Jake to his core. Jake, Casey said, voice low and dangerous, this play, this performance? You're in way over your head. Fear and confusion cascaded through Jake. He thought of their shared past, the bonds molded in trust now shattered, just like the glass that littered the floor. Don't listen to him. The rich girl interjected, her voice cutting through the tension, urgently. He's manipulating you. Just Casey interrupted, stepping closer. Manipulating? Oh no, you've got it wrong. This is just a game of survival now. A chilling smile crept across his face. Do you think she really brought you here for fun? You've been set up, my friend. Jake's gut tightened. Was it all a trap? Was she just a pawn in this game? Why? Jake spat. What do you want? The question isn't what I want. It's what you do to survive when your pretty little play turns deadly. The crowd was growing anxious, whispers dancing like fireflies in the dark. They were still entertained, completely oblivious to the depths of chaos seeping through. Jake! The rich girl shouted, panic rising in her voice as she pushed him slightly. We need to go. Now. But Casey laughed, the sound echoing like a sinister bell. Run all you want. I've already set things in motion you can't control. Fear twisted inside Jake, mixing with an adrenaline rush that left him breathless. The rich girl's facade began to crack, and he could see the glimmers of desperation flickering beneath. In that moment, something shifted. He wasn't just playing anymore. This was survival, raw and primal. He had to decide, should he trust her and bolt, or confront the darkness where it lay? As the weight of the decision pressed heavily, a loud crash erupted from the kitchen, shocking the crowd into silence. Jake's heart raced at the echo of chaos that could spell disaster in seconds. Jake! The girl's voice was urgent and shaky. We don't have time. Just then, he caught Casey's icy gaze again. The predator was circling, calculations dancing behind his eyes. What was on the other side of that kitchen door? And could Jake muster the courage to step into the unknown, with chaos swirling around him? Jake clenched his jaw, blood roaring in his ears. As the next heartbeat thundered, he prepared to face whatever emerged, knowing the only way out was through. Let us go, he breathed, gripping her hand tightly, the weight of the choice hanging over them. As they pushed forward, he couldn't shake the feeling that behind every door lay a greater truth, one that threatened to unravel everything who they were and who they had become. But would they emerge alive, or was the edge of darkness about to swallow them whole? Jake propelled himself and the rich girl toward the kitchen, his heart hammering like a drum in his chest. The chaos behind them was relentless, punctuated by the sounds of confusion and panic. He could feel the heat of Casey's gloating presence pressing just behind him. The kitchen door swung open with a creak. Inside, the bright lights illuminated the chaos that was unfolding. Splattered vegetables, toppled chairs, and a couple of bewildered staff members were rushing to stabilize the situation. Jake noticed someone standing by the door to the walk-in fridge, eyes wide, as if frozen in fear. Go, now, he urged, pulling the girl through the doorway. She stumbled slightly, but quickly regained her footing, urgency fueling her speed. They ducked into the kitchen area as Jake's instincts kicked in, directing them toward the back exit. But as they maneuvered through the chaos, he realized something terrifying. A loud banging echoed from the walk-in fridge. Suddenly, the door flew open, and a figure dressed in a dirty black hoodie emerged, fists clenched, eyes smoldering with rage. That it was another familiar face, Will, Jake's old roomie from college. But something in his expression twisted Jake's gut. There was no sign of the playful guy Jake once knew. This man looked feral, desperate. What is happening? Jake stammered, backing away slightly. You think I'm just going to let you walk out? How naive. Will spat, scanning the crowded room, fists still raised. What do you mean? Will, it's not too late. The rich girl's voice broke, tears glistening in her eyes. For a split second, a flicker of recognition crossed Will's face before the darkness returned. It's too late for all of us. You should have never been here, both of you. He lunged forward aggressively, forcing them to retreat a couple of steps. Jake's heart raced as he placed himself between Will and the girl. You've got to listen to me. We can work together instead of tearing each other apart. But Will just shook his head, the glint of derangement evident. This isn't about friendship anymore. It's about survival, and I can't have you two getting in my way. The tension in the room thickened. Jake was painfully aware that every second they lingered added danger to their situation. Suddenly, Casey's laughter echoed from outside the kitchen, sending chills down Jake's spine. Can't you see they're all pawns in this game? He taunted. Jake's mind raced, calculating their options. He spotted the back exit to the service alley, but knew they wouldn't make it there unscathed if they didn't confront Will. He needed a distraction. Will, Jake shouted, voice steady despite feeling the weight of fear crushing his chest. If you want to survive, you need allies, not enemies. This is about more than just us. Think of the bigger picture. Will faltered for a moment, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. But just as Jake thought he might reach him, the sound of shattering glass resounded from the dining room, followed by an eerie stillness. Everyone's attention shifted that way, and for a moment, Jake felt the pulse of fate converge onto this single moment. That's it, Casey said, his tone sultry with menace. Let the games begin. Jake seized the opportunity, yanking the girl toward the back exit, heart pounding, adrenaline coursing. As they burst outside into the cold night air, The large shadows behind them shifted like dark rain clouds, a foreboding promise that the night was far from over. "Where do we go now?" she gasped, pulling in deep breaths. "We need to find a place to regroup, somewhere safe," but just as he started scanning the area, something flickered in his peripheral vision. An old black van was parked a few feet away, engine rumbling softly, doors slightly ajar. Could it be their way out? "Jake! Wait!" the girl exclaimed, tugging at his sleeve, her fear palpable. "We don't know who's in there. It could be a trap." His instincts screamed at him, urging him to take risks. They had made it this far. But was trusting the unknown worth the risk? Between the shadowy figure of Casey still looming in their minds and the ominous van nearby, an impossible choice loomed ahead, and Jake knew they had to decide quickly what lay inside the van. Safety? Or a darker threat that would seal their fates? Jake's heart raced as he and the girl exchanged frantic glances. The van loomed ahead, a hulking presence against the turbulent chaos they'd just escaped. Each passing second felt heavy, laden with uncertainty and fear. "Are we really going to trust this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of sirens echoing in the distance. The glow of flashing lights began to reflect off the nearby buildings, casting eerie shadows that danced on the pavement. Without replying, Jake moved toward the van, heart thumping loudly in his ears. With each step, the decision weighed heavily on him. He recognized the danger of venturing into the unknown, but felt the pull of desperation. There was no other option. He reached the van, peering inside. The interior was shadowy, with only the dim light of the street lamp casting a glow over a leather seat. No sign of a driver or any immediate threat. Taking a deep breath, he swung the door open wider. "Get in," he urged, urgency threading through his voice. The girl hesitated. "What if it's a trap? Right now, everything could be a trap. We've gotta move." The stress in her eyes mirrored his own, but her reluctance was palpable. They could hear muffled noises from the venue behind them, shouts, the crash of furniture, the low growl of Casey's taunts reminding them of their immediate peril. With another glance back, she seemed to gather her courage and slipped into the van. Jake followed, slamming the door shut. The air inside felt stale, and the sense of entrapment sent a shiver down his spine. "Do you see anything?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jake squinted into the shadows. As he reached for the interior light, a sudden movement caught his eye. It was a figure in the driver's seat, the outline of someone slumped over the steering wheel, as if they were asleep. Tension hit Jake like a brick. "Hey, wake up," he yelled, instinct kicking in. He reached forward, shaking the person, but they didn't stir. The weight of dread settled in his gut. "Jake!" The girl's voice rose in panic. He turned to see fear blooming across her face as she pointed out the window. Outside, Casey stood under the streetlight, a sinister smile plastered across his face. He was flanked by Will and a couple of other familiar faces that Jake had hoped to never see again. It was like a horror movie come to life, but they were the ones trapped in it. "Found you," Casey called, his voice slithering into the van. "The fun's just starting." Jake's mind raced as he looked for an exit. He spotted the handle, but knew bursting out wouldn't save them. "We have to stay quiet," he whispered urgently, trying to rationalize their options. "Maybe they think we're gone." But the girl wasn't having it. "They won't give up that easily," she hissed, her breathing quickening. Jake could see the panic bubbling beneath her composure. The van shook slightly as one of Casey's crew leaned against it, chuckling darkly. "What's the rush, loves? The party's just begun." Jake felt sick. If they made a sound, there was no telling what would happen next. He glanced at the girl and nodded toward the back of the van, hoping they could slip out unnoticed. Just then, the rumbling engine sputtered, breaking the tense silence. "What now?" she whispered, eyes wide with fear. Before Jake could respond, a metallic clang echoed from outside. Had someone found a weapon? He held his breath, bracing himself. "Let us end this." Casey's voice rang out, a cruel promise. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the night, freezing Jake in place. The girl grabbed his arm, her fingers tight and desperate. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but what lay outside the van was as terrifying as the disruption they'd just experienced. "A reckoning is coming, and you two are at the center of it." Jake's heart dropped. Could he trust the girl beside him? In a night filled with betrayal and deception, every choice now felt like a damnation. With the darkness closing in around them and their choices narrowing by the second, Jake knew one thing for sure: whatever was about to happen would forever alter the course of their lives. What awaited them outside? Was there any escape from the horrifying game Casey had set in motion? The van was eerily silent, the weight of Jake's decision crushing him. Outside, Casey's crew was up to something, and the tension was palpable. Jake's heart raced as the reality of the confrontation dawned on him. He glanced at the girl, her wide eyes filled with fear, and he swallowed hard. What if they find us? She whispered, her voice trembling. We can't panic, Jake replied, trying to inject strength into his voice. We need to stay calm and think. But it was hard to think with Casey prowling outside, taunting them. The sound of laughter twisted with threats sent chills down Jake's spine. He imagined Casey pacing like a predator, sharpening his claws for the hunt. Suddenly, the driver's head shifted slightly, a glimpse of a face emerging from the shadows, trying to pull Jake back from the edge of despair. Maybe he's just sleeping, the girl suggested, uncertainty lacing her words. Or worse, Jake whispered back, eyes darting between the slumped figure and the men outside. We have to see if he's okay. Slowly, they inched forward, their bodies tensed, ready to spring. Jake reached out, a shaky hand brushing against the driver's shoulder. He shook gently, worried that any sudden movement could spell doom. Simon, man, wake up. The urgency sparked in Jake's voice, but still, no response. He steeled himself and leaned closer, ready to check for a pulse when suddenly, the driver's head jerked up. Jake recoiled, adrenaline flooding his veins. It was a man Jake recognized: Tom, an old friend, and one of the few people Jake trusted. But as Jake saw Tom's pale face, the fear etched into every line told him something was wrong. Tom, what happened? Jake shouted, shaking him again. Damn it, Jake, Tom gasped, his voice raspy. You need to get out. They're coming. Before Jake could process Tom's warning, a loud thud hit the van. Jake and the girl exchanged horrified glances. The crew was no longer just waiting, they were crashing the party. Go now? Tom staggered to his knees, looking desperate. I can't hold them off for long. But where? Jake's mind couldn't catch up with the moment. They were surrounded, trapped in a cage of metal and dread. What do we do? The girl gasped, her breath quickening too. Back door, Jake decided, his voice firm despite the spiraling chaos. We run. On the count of 3. Wait. What if 3? Go. Jake burst through the back doors, adrenaline flooding his veins. They stumbled out into the alley, the warm night air clashing with the cold rush of fear. The darkness swallowed them for a heartbeat, but then they skidded to a halt. The alley was a maze of shadows, and the distant echo of laughter grew closer. They were not safe yet. Casey's crew poured around the front of the van, shouting at each other, and Jake could feel the ground shaking beneath their feet as dread weaved through him. Where do we go? The girl whispered, panic rising again. Anywhere but here, Jake replied, taking her hand, pulling her down the alley. But with every step, the sound of footsteps thundered behind them. Casey and his crew were hot on their trail. They ducked behind a dumpster, breathless and wide-eyed. But Jake couldn't let his guard down. In the chaos, he suddenly realized they were heading straight into the old warehouse district, a place he knew all too well. Jake, what are we doing? The girl urged, eyes pleading, his heart hammered. The warehouse was a dead end, but we can find something there. It's worth the risk. As they crept closer, a sudden crash made Jake freeze. They were just a few feet away from safety, yet everything felt like it was collapsing around them. The heavy footsteps of Casey and his crew reverberated through the silence, and every second felt like a countdown. Go, he urged her, pushing her forward, but as she moved, something sharp caught the light behind them, a glint of steel that in one swift moment. A hand reached out, grabbing Jake by the collar, spinning him around. Caught you, Casey sneered, his voice dripping with malice. Jake's back slammed against the wall, and for one frozen instant, all he could think about was escape. But before he could muster any fight, he glanced at the girl frozen in horror, and then something shifted in her eyes. She's part of it, isn't she? Jake suddenly blurted out, the realization striking hard. In that split second, the girl shifted, her expression switching from fear to something colder. Guess it's time to choose sides. Jake, his world tilted, and as dread clawed at him, he realized they were in deep, and trust had never felt so far away. What had she been hiding? And just how deep was this betrayal? The alley was cloaked in shadows, the stench of old trash mixing with the metallic taste of fear in Jake's mouth. It felt like time had slowed as Casey loomed over him, a sinister grin spreading across his face. The girl stood still, her icy demeanor piercing through the tension, her breath hitching ever so slightly. Are you going to join the fun? Casey taunted, his eyes darting between Jake and the girl. Or are you going to make this boring? I wouldn't want to hurt my dear friend here. Jake's heart raced. What did you do to her? He demanded, forcing steel into his voice while his body screamed to run. She has her reasons, Casey replied, shrugging nonchalantly. Everyone does something for a reason, right? Behind Casey, the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder. The other crew members were closing in, their rough laughter echoing through the alley, a pack ready to pounce. Jake's mind whirled. They were running out of time. What are you doing with her, Casey? He pressed, desperate. She's got a choice to make. Casey's gaze shifted back to the girl. Join us, or stay in the gutter with your friend here. His eyes glittered with madness, a predator delighting in the hunt. A jolt of fury surged through Jake. You think you can just take her like this? She's not some pawn in your game. You're sick. Touchy, Casey said, raising an eyebrow. But you don't understand, this is bigger than both of us. He leaned closer to Jake, a taunting whisper slipping through his lips. Can you handle the truth? Jake struggled against Casey's grip, adrenaline fueling his fight. He gazed at the girl, searching for a flicker of the warmth he had seen just moments before. What is the truth? She suddenly asked, her voice steady but strained, draped in layers of confusion. What I need to know. Casey stepped back, relishing the tension. Now we're getting somewhere, he said, drawing a slow breath. What if I told you that everything you thought was real is just a shadow? Your life, my life, all tangled up in this web of lies. Stop it, Jake shouted, desperate to drown out Casey's poisoned words. Stop what? Casey feigned innocence, the smirk never leaving his face. I'm just a messenger. But the girl's expression darkened, uncertainty clouding her eyes. What is he talking about? She muttered, stepping a half-step back, her gaze locked on Casey. The moment stretched, taut and fraying, a single heartbeat vibrating through the tension. Jake felt the collar of his coat tighten as Casey jerked him forward, face close enough to see the cold relish. She has been playing you, Jake. She doesn't just know about me, she knows about everything. What everything? Jake dared to ask, but the chill creeping down his spine told him he didn't want to hear it. The girl's eyes narrowed. If you think I'm playing anyone, but her voice faltered, uncertainty creeping in. Lower your voice, sweetheart. Casey cut in, don't play innocent. You wanted in on everything, didn't you? His gaze flicked to Jake, then back, pushing the girl to expose herself. Tell him, sweetheart, or I can make him regret trusting you. Jake saw her breathe in deeply, as if to summon courage, but fear twisted around them like vines. I didn't she started, but her words fell short as chaos erupted nearby. An engine roared, shrouded in the distance, slicing through the tension like a knife. What was that? Jake asked, heart thumping wildly. Casey's attention snapped to the noise, irritation flashing on his face. It doesn't matter. You're both out of time. Jake seized the moment, wrestling free from Casey's grip. He propelled himself toward the girl, grasping her wrist. We can't stay here. We need to run. But she hesitated, caught up in the unraveling storm of deception. Where can we go? Jake's eyes darted around them, searching for the barest glimmer of hope. In that instant, Casey lunged, and time froze. Don't let him get away, he roared. But Jake was already moving. They dashed down the alley, racing against the chaos. Suddenly, the sound of engines erupted into life, cracking through the night. Tires screeched. Jake, what is coming? She cried out, hope rising and sinking in her eyes. The glow of headlights flared in the distance, swallowing them in a blinding flood of light, forcing them to a halt, the wall of reality crashing back in. Jake turned to face her, breathless. We move together or not at all, he insisted, aware each choice reverberated like a gunshot. But as the headlights approached, An ominous presence hung thick in the air, weighing down their every breath. And in that fraught moment, Jake realized trust had never felt so fragile. What awaited them in the light? And what would the truth truly cost? The blinding headlights barreled toward them, and Jake felt the heat of panic flush through him. "We have to decide now," he yelled, gripping her wrist tighter. The girl scanned the encroaching light, her expression a tumult of fear and resolve. "What if it's them?" she whispered, glancing nervously behind at Casey, who stood motionless, a malevolent specter waiting for their misstep. "It doesn't matter if it is." Jake spat, his heart racing, muscles trembling with urgency. "They want to stop for us. We need to run." Just as he was about to yank her away, the engine noise drew closer, and a sleek car glided to a stop mere feet from them, engines growling like angry beasts. The driver's side door swung open, and a figure emerged, silhouetted against the headlights. "Get in," a voice barked from the car. It was deep, commanding, filled with a sense of authority that cut through the haze of fear. Jake's instincts kicked in. "What do we do?" He looked at the girl, whose eyes flickered with indecision as the driver stepped into the light. "Do we trust them?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the doubt palpable in her gaze. Before Jake could answer, Casey lunged forward, his furious expression lit up against the blare of headlights. "No, don't listen to him," he shouted, desperation entwined with rage. "They're not here to help you." The girl hesitated, caught at a crossroads. Jake's grip on her wrist tightened even more. "We have no choice," he urged. The shadows shifted behind them, and he could hear the crew members' laughter growing louder, the atmosphere thickening with menacing intent. "Last chance." The voice in the car boomed, impatience tinged with intensity. The figure shifted slightly, revealing a dusting of bright, long hair and a familiar face that sent a chill down Jake's spine. "Jess?" The girl blinked in astonishment, recognition washing over her. "Jess, what are you doing here?" The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around them like a chokehold. "Get in. Hurry," Jess urged, her voice rising amid Casey's fury. "They're coming, and there's no time to waste." Jake glanced back at Casey, boiling with rage, ready to pounce. He turned to the girl, panic crashing into resolve. "We go now. I want to let him take you." Before they could discuss it any further, Jake pulled her toward Jess's car. Casey's face twisted, eyes blazing with indignation. "You're making a mistake," he shouted, knowing he had lost control. With the sound of heavy footsteps closing in, fear screamed louder inside Jake's mind. The girl stumbled but kept pace with him. "What is happening?" she asked, breathless, sparks of confusion still flickering in her eyes. "Things you don't know yet," Jake replied urgently, glancing at Jess as they approached the vehicle. "But we need to move before they catch us." Finally, they reached the car, and Jess leaned over to unlock the doors from the inside. The heavy thud of boots pounded behind them, and every second stretched into unbearable tension. "Get in, get in, get in," Jess pleaded, panic rippling through her voice. Jake opened the back door, ushering the girl in first before sliding in himself, barely shutting the door as the pounding on the outside increased. The engine roared to life, and the car lunged forward, tires screeching against the asphalt, a wild escape from the shadows that threatened to claim them. Jake dared to glance back, adrenaline pumping through his veins as he watched Casey shake his fist. The crew was left behind, frantic and furious, but a sense of something darker loomed. "What the hell just happened?" Jess demanded, swerving expertly into a narrow street that opened before them. "I don't know," Jake said, breathless, the weight of the unknown pressing against his chest. The girl beside him stared straight ahead, the reality of their escape sinking in, her face pale with shock. Silence wrapped around them for a moment, punctuated only by the rhythmic thumping of his heart. "What do we do now?" she finally asked. A chill crawled up Jake's spine. "We uncover the truth," he said, their safety still hanging by a thread. Drawing closer to the light only to wrap themselves deeper into a maze of darkness. What hidden secrets lay in wait, and who could they truly trust now? The air grew thick with tension as Jess maneuvered through the twisting streets, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Each turn was frantic, the tires skidding against potholes. Jake could feel the girl's tension beside him. She was caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. He cast a quick glance at her. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling. "What is going on?" she breathed, her voice quaking. Jake cursed under his breath. "A lot. But first, we need to get far away from them." He risked another look back, half expecting to see Casey's furious face right behind them. But the darkness swallowed the road behind them, allowing only the roar of the engine to drown out their fears. "What if this is just a trap?" she whispered, the sadness in her voice cutting through what little assurance he had. "We barely know Jess. We have to trust her," he snapped, the words bursting out before he could temper his voice. Panic bubbled in him, and he didn't want to feel its burn. "If we're caught, we won't have any chance to find out what's really happening. We need information, and she's the only one who can help us." For now, the girl inhaled deeply, a flicker of courage flickering across her features, but uncertainty still hung like fog around them. Jess darted into a quieter neighborhood, the streetlights casting long shadows as they pulled around a corner. "Where to now?" Jake pressed. Jess's eyes were pinned to the road, but rain began to sprinkle on the windshield, almost as if the night itself was trying to tell them to stop. "We need to lay low for a bit at my place. It's nearby, and no one knows it." Her voice was steady, bolstered by purpose, but Jake sensed that Jess too was fighting something intense buried beneath. "Is anyone following us?" the girl asked, glancing nervously back as if the ghosts of their pursuers were waiting at every corner. "I don't know," Jess replied, not looking at them. "But that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, those people you're running from, they are not just some crew." Jess. Jake interrupted sharply. "We don't need to talk about them right now. Just get us to safety, please." The car pulled up to an unassuming two-story house at the end of a cul-de-sac. The green shutters were slightly chipped, the lawn overgrown. With the headlights fading into darkness, the house looked almost haunted, a fortress built from lost dreams. "Hurry, get out," Jess said, opening her door and slipping out. Jake and the girl followed her lead, their heartbeats pounding in synchronization with the drumming rain that began to fall harder against the pavement. Inside, the house was dimly lit, shadows flickering with life, yet it felt unwelcoming. "Stay close," Jess murmured, leading them through a narrow hallway adorned with peeling paint. Each step echoed in an unsettling rhythm. In the living room, a single lamp provided just enough light to see Jess's determined expression. "Okay, we need to hide, and fast. They'll come looking for you." "Who are they? What do they want?" the girl asked, urgency clawing at her voice. Jess took a deep breath, her gaze flickering as if she was weighing the gravity of her words. "That's what we need to find out. But you're in serious danger. Trust me, I've seen what they can do." Jake felt a chill, a wave of dread washing over him. "What do you know about them?" he questioned, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. But before Jess could respond, they heard a sound that froze the blood in their veins, a heavy thudding at the front door. It echoed like a drum of doom, sending waves of panic racing through them. As Jess clenched her fists, the girl turned to Jake, fear dancing in her eyes. "What do we do now?" And that question hung in the air, thick and pregnant with uncertainty. They were trapped between the door and their own unanswered questions. Would their secrets come rushing in like a flood, or would they find a way to escape this waking nightmare? The pressure on Jake intensified. They were backed into a corner, and the sound of the thumping on the door rang like a death knell. Jess's eyes flickered nervously, scanning their surroundings. "We need to find another way out," she urged, her voice taut but controlled. Jake's heart raced. The thuds grew louder, relentless, a reminder that darkness was close on their heels. "There's got to be a back door or a window," he said, adrenaline pumping through his veins. But the girl tugged at his arm. "What if they're already out there? What if it's a trap?" Her voice trembled with fear, the uncertainty tightening her features into a mask of panic. "Listen," he said, forcing calm despite the chaos. "We can't stay here. If they break in, I won't let them take either of you." He felt a surge of resolve welling inside him. This was a moment of total clarity. Just then, a crashing sound echoed through the house. "They're coming," Jess cried out. With no other options, Jake turned and led them toward a darkened hallway that opened up into a tiny kitchen. But as they approached the back door, a low, mocking laugh resonated from the other side. "You can't hide from us, Jake. We know you're in there." It was Casey, his voice heavy with malice. "Grab something," Jake shouted, spotting a kitchen chair and some decorative knives on the counter. Jess rushed to arm herself, while Jake threw the chair against the door just as it bucked hard from the outside. With adrenaline buzzing like electricity, he knew they had only seconds left. Now what? Jess demanded, her voice rising in panic. The girl took a deep breath, finally facing the tension with a flicker of courage. We take a stand. We fight back. Jake nodded, heart pounding. Together, then. The door rattled again, the force pounding against it sending shockwaves through Jake's body. Casey's taunts filtered in, each word stoking their fear like a fire. Oh, I can't wait to show you what we've planned for you. You'll wish you'd never run. In that moment, Jake felt a fire flicker to life inside him, igniting his resolve. We're not going anywhere, Casey. We're going to show you just how wrong you are. He hurled open the drawer and grabbed a knife, feeling its weight settle comfortably in his hand. If he breaks through, we will not go down without a fight. The girl and Jess exchanged glances, determination flying between them. The door gave way, and Casey burst into the kitchen with his crew, eyes gleaming with a dangerous thrill. But this time they were ready. Now, Jake shouted. They charged forward, each of them armed with whatever they could grab, and the surprise was palpable. A whirlwind of shouts and chaos engulfed the room. Jake felt the weight of the knife in his hand, and the adrenaline coursing through him, igniting a fierce instinct to protect what was dear to him. But amid the chaos, the girl caught Casey's eyes, and something shifted in the air. She wasn't just passive anymore. Back off, she yelled, surprising herself more than anyone. With unexpected force, she lunged toward Casey, distracting him even as he lunged back. And to Jake's astonishment, she held her ground. The fight erupted around them, and in that moment, the line blurred between predator and prey. They were all trapped in this deadly dance of survival. Fight! Jess cried, sending her own assailant crashing to the ground. The scene unfolded like a buildup of tension from the very beginning of this nightmare. Jake didn't wait. He charged forward and grabbed Casey, shaking him. This ends now. You have no idea who you're messing with. Is that so? Casey sneered, trying to twist free. You think you can take this from me? With an unexpected surge of strength, Jake pushed him back, and Casey lost his footing but regained his balance quickly enough to strike back. A fist connected with Jake's jaw, and everything blurred for a moment. He stumbled but fought through the pain. Just then, the girl grabbed his arm. Let us finish this. Together, they pressed forward. They hit him with everything they had, pushing, punching, kicking. It was a furious clash, fueled by their fear and a burning desire to survive. Each blow felt like a cathartic release of all the anxiety and dread they had bottled up in their hearts. In the tumult, Jake punched Casey square in the face, and to his shock, the punch landed. The smug facade cracked, revealing true rage. But they weren't done. The strength of three united against his darkness became unstoppable. With a wild swing, Jake knocked Casey down, the fight taking on a frantic life of its own. One of Casey's crew members started backing off, fear glinting in his eyes. This isn't worth it, he yelled, retreating point one by one. Casey's men started to scatter. I said fight. Casey screamed, regaining ground. But they held their ground against the last wave. All around them, the chaos began to subside, fear winning out over bravado. This was no longer a game. It was survival. After too many heart-stopping moments, Casey lay crumpled on the floor, defeated. The trio stood breathless, eyes wide, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had done it, but before they could catch their breaths, police sirens blasted in the distance, slicing through the tension. Several voices began shouting outside, commanding order in a world that had gone wrong. What now? Jess asked, breathless, as the shadows of doubt flickered on their faces. We run, Jake said, determination warming his voice. Before they realize we're the ones they want. We break free from this chaos once and for all. They rushed for the back door, hearts racing with every determined step. The game was shifting. It was now about freedom and a future untainted by shadows. With the night air rushing around them, they broke free, not just from the physical place but from the grip of their past, in the uncertain glow of a new dawn. They fled amidst laughter and chaos. But now they took hope in knowing they had each other, a solid force against whatever struggles lay ahead. They would uncover the truth together, and this time, with no one left in the dark that as they raced into an uncertain future, Jake felt a surge of something more than just fear. They were fighters now, woven together by the shared bonds of chaos, battle, and, finally, freedom. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support our storytelling journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling finale. Your support matters. Let us build this community together.